Salute family and welcome back to another video. This is Black Truth United. Oh, you're in for a doozy with this video. We're going to be combining biblical text with historical records, old footage, new footage, all kinds of things. So buckle up, strap in. This is going to be a comprehensive video against abortion, and in particular propping up and showing love to the black women who are against abortion. Some of you already know I don't play games when it comes to this subject. All that reproductive justice, my body, my choice BS doesn't fly around me, and it doesn't fly around real men who are the defenders of children. But what is sad is sometimes, at least in recent years, sometimes the men seem to be the biggest defenders, and a lot of the women are fighting against the men who are trying to keep children alive. But there's a shift. You can tell righteous women are waking up to the games that the media machine and miseducation programs have pushed into their brains. And that's a righteous thing that should be acknowledged and applauded. Now, for those who don't know my stance on abortion, I'll say it very plainly. Abortion is murder. Now, whether you do it yourself or whether you hire a hitman to do it, aka a doctor or another individual to do it, it's murder. Period. A baby is a baby upon conception. It may not even have a gender yet, but the moment a zygote forms, abortion is off the table. So now we're going to briefly cover a tweet that I decided to get involved with from a sister named Juicy Genius. Now, of course, I don't agree 100% with every single thing Juicy Genius says. In fact, there's practically no one that I agree with 100% of the time. But when we see a righteous response to straight up evil and wickedness, a demonic act of abortion, we do need to acknowledge it and support the people who are taking a stand, especially our women. So let me go ahead and read the tweet that she put up, which states, "Real question. How does the phrase, my body, my choice, work for abortions, but not vaccinations?" Now, this is a very simple question and a very good one. So I decided to bookmark this and to respond to all the demon undercover baby unalivers who I knew would show up in the comment section. So for a good 2 days, I was in there going back and forth, slaying demons. And I'm not going to be going through every single tweet. Feel free to pause the video and see how I very easily debunk these clowns. You all should know I typically don't go back and forth with individuals on Twitter/X. And no, the foreign flags that I saw were not lost on me. That's why I tell our FBA women, hey, look out for who's saying this or who's saying that about quote-unquote women's rights, my body, my choice, and all that. And also watch out for males, not men, but males, who low-key co-sign abortion and try to hide under different pretenses. So here we go, you can see the exchange, and most of the people were not bold enough to respond, but those who did received what was coming to them, a very bold, slap-to-the-face response, filled with logic. And then at the end of the exchange, you definitely didn't see all the tweets, but at the end of the 2 days, I posted this: "We need to go harder in the paint against baby blender babblers." I don't typically go back and forth with this many people, but we definitely need to check anyone passively or actively talking about harming the most vulnerable of our people. And you can see the tweet here. This was another one. "One is a public health crisis. Hope that helps." You're right. Unaliving babies is a public health crisis. I wish I could dislike a tweet. You know, all this would be funny if it wasn't a serious subject matter. We're talking about unaliving babies here. An evil demonic act, which they purposefully use in order to decrease our numbers and to destroy the next generation before they even get a chance. But I digress. Now we're going to be covering the first part of the title, The Spirits of Shiphrah and Puah. Now, if you're one of these "come save me white Jesus" types of people, this is not the video for you. The people of the book, the people of God, whatever you'd like to call us, were and are what people would consider black, and in particular foundational black Americans. So now we're going to be covering why I say the spirits of Shiphrah and Puah, righteous black women against abortion. Shiphrah and Puah, for those who don't know, would be considered in today's times black women. You should know this already, but I'll say it just for the people in the back. The Egyptians were black and the people of God were black, although there was a clear distinction between the people of God and the Egyptians. Not the same people. However, we both have the same skin color. And yes, foundational black Americans would be the descendants of the people of God, meaning the people of God. Yes, foundational black Americans are the people of God. If you don't know that by now, you're kind of late to the party. But let's get into this passage which talks about abortion. Yes, abortion is in the Bible. This is nothing new. It's been around probably even before the times of Exodus, but we're going to specifically be in Exodus chapter 1. Alright, here we go. And the king of Egypt spake to the Israelites, of which the name of the one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other Puah, 2 black women. And he said, when ye do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, to black women, not Egyptian women, but to black women specifically, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then ye shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. This is abortion, a late-term abortion. For those who don't know, there have been reports floating around about doctors unaliving babies really late-term, as in during birth. The wicked Pharaoh, king of Egypt, is asking these midwives to perform an abortion specifically against our people. And notice the target is the son. Now why the son? Because the men are the strength of any nation. Without the sons, the daughters are left unprotected. Now someone in the new black media who I respect a lot often states how women are the primary targets of white supremacists, and how they're in some ways hated more. And while I do agree with this point, there is a caveat. Women are the primary targets for white supremacy in the sense of targeting them for propaganda, targeting them for lies, for deception, for what the Bible calls the flood. This is true even if you want to take it all the way back to Genesis chapter 3. When you read about the serpent, who did he target? Eve, because he knew he could deceive her. He didn't target the man. The man is not the target for the deception. He knew he couldn't face the man head on because he would be confronted and shut down. So why not get to the man by using the woman? This reigns true in the Willie Lynch letter. If you read, it talks about how the woman in particular, it says Africa in there, but obviously we're talking about the people of God, black women. They are singled out and targeted specifically so that they can break the next generation and raise the males and females in reverse roles, making the males weak, submissive, effeminate, etc., and the females pseudo-independent, pseudo-masculine, pseudo-strong, etc. Now the opposite is true when it comes to violence. Hell, even when you look at hunting and fishing. I know it's a cruel example, but think about it. Typically, female deer, female fish, etc., etc., are left alone or released back into the wild, and the males are butchered after being killed. Just like that, you can see here in the Willie Lynch letter, when it talks about breaking the spirit of a slave, it doesn't talk about bullwhipping a woman to death. It talks about taking the strongest, most rebellious Negro male and beating him to the point of death, but not quite death, just enough. So again, just to review, the females are the primary targets for the flood, for the deception, for the miseducation system, for the propaganda. However, the males are the primary targets for violence. As you're seeing here in Exodus, this goes on throughout the entire Bible. This goes on throughout all of history, as we know. The males are targeted for violence because once you get rid of the warrior class, what do you have left? The women and the children, who are easy targets. There's even a passage in the Bible that talks about removing, or rather binding, the strong man from the house. That way you can spoil the entire house. Bells and whistles should be going off in regards to the welfare Section 8 nonsense that they tried to push on our community, and the criminal injustice system, breaking up families. But I digress. So a main goal of these wicked Egyptians was to kill the sons or the men children. They weren't as threatened by the daughters. Let's continue on. But the midwives feared God. No, they feared Pharaoh. But the midwives feared God. No, they feared all the laws of the land. But the midwives feared God. Not Massa, not their peers, not wicked, rebellious feminates, but they feared God, and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men children alive. These were righteous women. They weren't man-hating monsters. They knew that saving the sons would in turn lead to the strength of a nation and lead to eventually them being protected. Now watch what happens with this wicked-ass Egyptian. And the king of Egypt called for the midwives and said unto them, Why have ye done this thing, and have saved the men children alive? Then the midwives said unto Pharaoh, Because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women. We're not the same. We're all one big Negro, and everyone's the same. All people who have the same melanin count. No, we're not all the same people. Some of these tethers walking around are descendants from these wicked Egyptians. Some of them are the same ones carrying the same spirit, trying to convince our women to unalive their baby. Meanwhile, they come over and pop out 7 or 8. But anyway, let's continue reading. For they are lively. The Hebrew women are lively. We have spirit, we have a soul. These other females, the spirit bears witness that they're not the people of God. They don't have that spirit. They're not lively like our women are lively. When we're not riddled with wickedness and sin, we have lively females. And are delivered ere the midwives come in unto them. Therefore God dealt well with the midwives. No, Pharaoh had control of them, and he punished them, and he tortured them, and he was given power to kill him, and he took care of them. No, the Most High God dealt with the midwives, and the people multiplied and waxed very mighty. Why? Because the men were saved. Can't build a nation without strong men to protect and to lead. Let's continue on. And it came to pass, when the midwives feared God, that he made them houses. I want you to keep in mind that at this time, our people, the people of God, were in captivity in Egypt. And even in captivity, they were given houses. So the Most High God set them up, proving that he had power over Pharaoh even back then. Let's continue on. And Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, every son that is born ye shall cast into the river, and every daughter ye shall save alive. He didn't give up on his goal. He instead charged his own people, who he knew were not lively, were not the same, did not have our same spirit, would be comfortable unaliving babies. He charged them with the task of unaliving newborn babies, throwing them into the river, having them drowned. This is the demonic spirit of Egypt. And this is why in our current captivity there's so much symbolism praising Egypt, making it out to be a grandiose ordeal. And that same spirit of wanting our women to have abortions is still here and prevalent, and something we must fight against, just as Shiphrah and Puah did. In their own way, probably a seemingly small way, they greatly impacted the nation. Now I also want to point out that as I was doing research to try to find videos of black women going against abortion and giving legitimate talking points, I was bombarded with a whole bunch of propaganda of pro-abortion nonsense. And one in particular, the one at the bottom, stuck out to me. This is from 10 years ago, and it's a video discussing how the black church should be used to quote-unquote educate and support black women. Translation, to encourage our women to unalive their babies. There's a special place in hell for these pastors who are intentionally leading their flock astray. And this shouldn't be a surprise. Some of you have probably seen the letter from margaretsanger, in which she exposed the plot to use not only doctors but ministers to quote-unquote straighten out rebellious Negroes who peeped the game. Let me read this real quick. We do not want the word to get out that we want to exterminate the Negro population, and the minister is the man who can straighten out that idea if it ever occurs to any of their more rebellious members. Well, guess what? This is a rebellious member talking right now, and we're exposing your plan and your plot to exterminate our population through abortion. This is the founder of Planned Parenthood, that wicked-ass organization, which purposefully puts buildings in our communities, targeting our women with flyers and all kinds of BS. And for those who don't know, the wrinkled up rube in the middle of the screen is margaretsanger. But anyway, now we're going to go on to a video. But before we do, I want to point out this disclaimer, which is probably under the video that you're watching right now, my video, talking about abortion, which is a procedure to end a pregnancy. This is all fluff. When you see this kind of wording, just know it's referring to ending a baby's life. They always need to change up the language in order to lie and deceive our people. And shout out to Hezekiah News and Films. I don't always agree with what he posts, but he definitely has a great ability to find rare footage. So let's get into this. And before I get started, I want to say fair use, fair use. This is for research, education, scholarship, learning, etc. Fair use.
Why are you against abortion?
I'm against abortion, Mr. Tuckner, for all conceivable reasons.
Now let's start again.
Okay.
It's nice to have this. The people who are pro-abortion point out that they're not really killing, that life is not really come about until the baby is born.
Notice the tactics never change. This is the same exact stuff that they're pushing right now. And trust and believe that they're pissed off that this sister has the audacity to defy them, just as Shiphrah and Puah denied Pharaoh his wishes. But I want you to listen to her response. It's still very practical and succinct.
This is something which is not accurate in our medical knowledge and in our scientific knowledge that we have today. If we get into the area of confusion of when life begins, it's quite easy to believe that. But if we go by exactly what we can show, we see that the transmission of life to the person that I am and that you are happens at the moment of fertilization.
I literally had to go dig up that clapping sound because of how good of a response that was. Starts at conception. This is a doctor, a medical doctor, speaking on this issue, and you better believe he absolutely hates it. She destroyed his talking point very easily. And what she just said, you can copy and paste into right now. The very same talking points that I was using to slay demons on Twitter are the same talking points that she's using right here. Why have they not changed? Because the truth doesn't change. Let's let it continue.
And it is from this moment when the continuous cell division is established that the only thing that we know of the life process begins. And in the biological sense, anytime you interrupt that, you carry out the act of killing.
Notice the long pause. I guarantee you this person is saying in his mind, "You damn bitch, how dare you defy me?" No different than Pharaoh with Shiphrah and Puah. He absolutely hates the fact that she's logically annihilating him.
Are there many doctors such as yourself who are against abortion?
Yes, there are quite a few doctors who are against abortion. We do not know the exact figure because I don't think anyone has conducted a really accurate, in-depth poll to determine the number that still uphold the traditional feeling toward abortion, because the Hippocratic Oath, which I have taken and which many other physicians have taken, do indeed prescribe abortion.
Notice another long pause. They hate the fact that back then and even now, we have doctors who are staunchly against abortion. They may not always voice their opinion strongly, likely due to legal obligations, but we do have brothers and sisters who are against abortion, just like this righteous sister right here. And this is why I purposefully, with the B1 Rolodex, started adding FBA and B1 doctors, especially OBGYNs. But I digress. Let's let it continue.
Do you feel that abortion works against minority groups such as blacks?
Well, if we look at what has happened in New York State, for example, in 1971, approximately 46% of non-white women were represented in the abortion figures. If you look correspondingly at the live birth figures, you will see that the non-white birth, excluding Spanish-speaking, was around 29%. If that continues, one could readily see that there may be no non-white births in New York City eventually.
What she's saying is that she knows that there's a plot to destroy her people and she's not having it. She's not going to participate in the destruction of her own people. She sees what's going on and is looking the devil right in his eyes, telling him she's not having it.
So you feel that abortion in a way is almost not only diminishing but may wipe out black population.
Suspected white supremacists act dumb after you answer their questions. He reframed the question, changed a few words, specified black, but it's essentially the same question. They also create problems and then question you like, "What? That's a problem? Well, I didn't know that. I was targeting you? Well, how could that be?" Knowing damn well the plot for Margaretsanger and others to unalive us. Let's let it continue.
Well, not just the non-white population, but any of the groups that have suffered from medical neglect, deprivation, poor jobs, things of this order. All of the ones who have had problems just bringing their children into the world to begin with, those who will already lose their children more readily on the street corners, for example, they're not doing such women a favor by killing their children before they can be born.
Doesn't this sound familiar? Remember this big fat fuck, this son of a bitch who got up saying that abortion bans will increase mass incarceration? This is in that same vein of what she's describing. Just unalive all your babies. That way there are fewer criminals. Might as well give up now before they have a chance. Absolutely demonic. And notice the community that message was coming from. Alright, let's let it continue.
Do you feel that it's by design, perhaps, to work against the blacks?
Not a deliberate design, but a matter of setting an example so that perhaps all of us might be willing to diminish our numbers in the world. The population emphasis, for example, a way of leading other Americans to get rid of themselves. On the other hand, I feel that the world has a great deal to gain by having active, vigorous Americans here to help solve the problems, and that America itself has nothing to gain by trying to destroy its own population.
Notice how this guy keeps asking the same question over and over again, and she's responding very intelligently. You can tell she knows more than what she's letting on. This is a very wise sister, and we can all learn something from this. Sometimes when you're dealing with wolves, you have to be as wise as a serpent and as harmless as a dove. Let's let it continue.
What do you say to those who demonstrate vociferously for abortion?
I say I'm very sorry for them, because a little girl who carries a placard demanding an abortion just very likely sets herself up to be in the circumstance of having to look for one, because by carrying such a sign she almost makes herself an invitation, because there will be many more men who will be willing to help her need an abortion than will provide circumstances where she could have a child, a home, or a baby.
Damn, she just cut up the feminazis. See, I can deal with a sister like this. She's telling it like it is. She's calling out the dusty dudes who prey on unsuspecting females, feminazis who declare my body, my choice, and all that nonsense. You actually make yourself out to be a prey for dusty dudes. If you ever wonder why you're attracting dusty dudes who aren't about shit, part of that may have to deal with what you're putting out there. When you are pro-abortion, dusty dudes look at you as a free jump-off, because they can get what they want without having any responsibility. That was an excellent point that she made, calling out both the dusty dudes and hood rat feminazis.
Do you feel that the people trying to do away with abortion laws are correct in the way they're conducting their campaigns, running around with fetuses in bottles and things like that?
The problem there is that abortion, every successful abortion gets rid of a baby. If it's in the first 6 to 8 weeks, when it is called embryo, or from that time until term, when it is called fetus, one has to face the reality of what is being done. When someone goes about with a bicycle pump or a coat hanger or something like that and says, oh, this is what you force some poor woman to use, that simply is, I think, emotional distraction, because not that many poor women have been forced to use this, and if they knew more about their bodies and had better health care, teaching, and education to begin with, that wouldn't be a problem. But every successful abortion means that by suction, a small, growing human being is mangled and homogenized into a mush, and that with every B and C, a small being is mangled. With every saline injection, that some baby has to be scalded and drowned in this concentrated salt solution, and with every hysterotomy, some child is removed from the uterus while it is still alive, and perhaps just left to die, or perhaps resuscitated, depending on the circumstance. That is the reality of abortion. Every abortion produces something such as the pictures represent.
What she's saying is absolutely true. No matter how the abortion is conducted, it's unaliving a baby. And you all can do this in your free time. I'm not going to show pictures on here. We'll probably get the video struck down. But in your free time, when you're in the mood and you can stomach it, look up the results of an abortion and the mangled up bodies of babies that are ripped out. It's absolutely demonic, and I'll never be for that.
Doctor, many pro-abortionists say basically a woman has a right to control her own body, and for this reason she should be able to do what she wishes in terms of abortion. What is your response to that?
I think the thinking is a little incomplete there. A woman should have the right to control her own body, but she should first make sure what her own body is. And I think that no really rational person would expect to show control over that body by cutting off normal fingers and toes. This newly developing baby is not a part of its mother's body. It is resting there, living there, being provided with nutrition and protection, because the mother, the woman, is the only one we have who is naturally equipped with a container for carrying a newly developing baby. But from the moment that the egg leaves her ovary, it's on the way out of her body. Sperm has already left the man's body, and when these two meet, somewhere up in her fallopian tubes, they have already ceased being part of those two bodies. So that after fertilization takes place, and this developing embryo or group of cells then, which is the early embryo.
I want to point out that she's talking about the moment the two gametes meet and create one unique being. That's when the conception happens. And if you want to go biblical, ask yourself why Mary, as well as many others, were declared to be with child before those children were born. This is why under the video you're watching now, and under almost every single post that goes viral talking about abortion, you have misinformation. They want to make sure that our people are misinformed about different facts. And this should be natural. This is kind of like natural logic. But even if you want to go scientific, she's breaking it down just as I did before. Once a zygote forms, that's no longer her body. That's no longer the man's body. That's a separate being who should now be protected and not unalived. It makes no sense that you can commit the act of abortion, aka the act of unaliving a baby 2 or 3 weeks before pregnancy. But if that baby is born 2 or 3 weeks beforehand unexpectedly and someone unalives him or her, now all of a sudden it's called murder. That makes absolutely no sense. But I don't want to get caught on a tangent. Let's let her continue.
Starts down the tube to it's placed beneath the lining of her uterus. It's already a new and different being, never the same as its mother, never the same as its father, and never a part of the mother's body.
Does it anger you, the pro-abortion group? Do they anger you or their tactics?
No, not at all. This is a democratic society, and the point is to convince the public of your view. Some people will always respond to hard sell methods, others won't. But we think if most of the people have proper, accurate, and correct information, they won't be willing just to let babies be destroyed before they can be born.
All right, fine.
Yes, I'm noticing the major skips as well. This was not me. This was the news organization redacting some of the things that she said. She was probably cooking them up, and they probably said, hey, let's cut that out. This sister is on point. Let's let her continue.
For what reasons are you against abortion?
I'm against abortion on all conceivable grounds, medically, morally, legally, on religious grounds, philosophically, sociological, political, and demographic.
Why?
I do not believe that in a sound and just society we can give the individual the right to kill and to have that individual have another person, in this case, the doctor, carry that out when the person herself or himself is unable.
And yes, that also was not me. The video just cut out right there. But I have to do this one more time. Certified salute to that sister. That's why she's on the thumbnail. Very intelligent, very sound, and very practical. I too, on every level, am against abortion. Spiritually, philosophically, morally, ethically, physically. In all ways, I'm against this demonic practice. Much love to that sister. Alright, now let's go into the comment section, because just like with the post made by Juicy Genius, we once again have demons spawning after truth is shared. So let's get into some of these wicked comments. Here at the top, we have someone who's being hard-headed, but at least it's respectful. She's saying, I'm pro-choice, but I appreciate the historical content. Next, we have a dumbass who said, this hasn't aged well, and who refused to answer the question, how so, from someone. Then we have an evil demonic being who probably has had 4 or 5 abortions herself. Here's what she said. I'm against her little house on the prairie hairstyle. My body, my choice. Man, this is a demon that spawned from hell. House on the prairie hairstyle. Let's take a look at her. Here she is. As you can see, a wicked, rebellious, tattoo infested, bottom feeding, immature, wicked ass clown. And while I admit I do like our women to have their natural hair, I'll take this righteous, intelligent, beautiful black woman over that demon any day. You can look into her eyes and tell she's sincere. This is a woman who is probably an unsung hero of some of the very people listening to this video right now. maybe even that evil commenter. You can tell, like many doctors, after pulling long shifts, she's tired, but she has that drive and that motivation to keep going. This is the righteous spirit of Shiphrah and Puah that we need to bring back. Then you have this last commenter right here that I'm not even sure is a real account. This could be the white supremacist AI or something, because this doesn't even make any sense. She's a typical mammy and pick-me. How the hell did you get that from what she said? But this is how demonic our society has become. Women who are righteous, women who are upright, nurturing, caring, kind, are framed as mammies and pick-me's. And if that's what a pick-me is, sisters listening to the sound of my voice, that's what you want to be. If this person is real, it's probably a jealous, hating ass, lonely ass loser who couldn't get a man even if she threw it out there for free. But I digress. Alright, now we're going to get into a video that I had to dig for. The original was taken down off of YouTube due to censorship, most likely, and them not liking the message that this sister had. Now, I've done a little bit of research about this sister, and there are some things that she says that I disagree with, just like with almost anyone. But on this particular point, she is on it. So I'm going to play the audio because the video was kind of jumbled up. It was someone recording the event. This is Christina Bennett in New York City. So, fair use. This is for research, scholarship, and education. Fair use.
Christina Bennett.
Woo! Thank you. I'm honored to be here today with you in New York. We are here to celebrate and proclaim life over this city. Woo! In New York, sadly, there are more black children that die yearly than are even born. Abortion is the #1 cause of death in the black community. And since 1973, over 16 million black babies have been aborted.
For anyone who questions the seriousness of this or who doesn't know the numbers, there they are. Now listen closely.
And I was scheduled to be one of those children. In 1981 in Hartford, Connecticut, my mother had an appointment to abort me. She was wearing a white robe. She paid for the abortion. The counselor didn't give her any counsel, only telling her, this seems like the best decision for you to make.
These people are heartless and ruthless. They don't care about the baby, let alone the mother, and the psychological effects that this will have on her. They don't care about the physical effects, because for those who don't know, there are all kinds of cancers and diseases linked to people who have abortions. Anyone involved in this industry is going to have to answer to the Most High God.
But in that 11th hour, God heard her silent cry, and he sent a janitor. He sent an African-American woman to approach her and to look her in the eye as she was crying in the hallway and say, do you want to have this baby? And guess what my mother said? She said yes!
And this is why they've done their best to get rid of us from the medical industry altogether. Not only the nursing positions and the other licensed positions, but even janitors and cafeteria workers. They don't want us anywhere near the medical industry because they know we make a difference in the lives of our own people. And think about it, this janitor didn't know her simple words of actual real compassion would make a difference. It didn't take a degree. It didn't take having a professional medical counseling degree or a medical doctor degree. It took having compassion for the sister and for her child, who's speaking now. Let's let it continue.
Praise God, hallelujah!
She said yes, and this janitor said, God will give you the strength to have your baby. But it didn't end there. She went back into the waiting room to get her stuff, and the doctor called her name. And when she went into his office, there was blood on the floor.
I tell you, this is a demonic practice. It truly is. This is absolutely sickening. A murdered baby's blood on the floor.
From the last abortion. And she said, I'm leaving, I'm keeping my child. And he said, no, you've already paid for this. Because that's what the abortion industry is about. Profiting off people's pain and desperation.
I'm gonna have to correct her on this. It's not just about the money, although that is a big part of it. This is about destroying and ripping out the future generation and keeping us in sin and filth.
And she said, no, I'm keeping my baby. And he said, you're just nervous. False compassion he tried to give her.
I wonder what the ethnicity of this doctor was. But we all know doctors can be some of the most ruthless and least emotional individuals on planet Earth.
And she said, no, I'm keeping my baby. And he screamed at her and said, don't leave this room.
I'm telling you, it's a demonic act. That doctor had a spirit on him of murder, of bloodlust, of satisfying the demon he was possessed with or the pagan god he was sacrificing to.
But she did not listen to him. She walked out.
Praise God. Hallelujah.
And today I am here, alive in New York. And I thank you, Jesus, for rescuing me. And he's going to do the same thing in this city. He's going to bring hope. He's going to break the decree of death. And he's going to save our sons and daughters if we only believe and if we only work towards that. And I want you to know that you are part of a movement of hope. This is an extension of the civil rights movement. This is the human rights movement of our day.
I'll let those words speak for themselves. I may not agree with every single word choice she used, but altogether I thought the speech was beautiful. And these demonic cowards are so sick they removed that speech from YouTube. What you were listening to was someone's cell phone recording of it that they reposted after the fact. But nothing they do will prevail against the Most High God. Now I have one more video that I want to share. And to give you the context, this is the live coverage of when Roe versus Wade was revoked, which we all know was done to benefit white people as opposed to us, to keep their birth numbers alive. We even had a politician say nearly those exact words, so we're not guessing here. But when they did the interviews of the pro-life protesters who were there was one sister in particular who caught my ears and my eyes, and I know it pissed them off. But before I play the clip, let me just remind whatever platform this is on that this is fair use. Fair use. Let's roll the footage.
I'm excited, but we all, as if you can see the celebration, but we all know this is not where the work ends. This is where it begins, because from anyone you can ask, this is what we'll be working for the rest of our lives, to make abortion illegal, unthinkable, and unnecessary.
Oh, you know that pissed them off. Certified salute to that sister and all of our sisters who are with us against this demonic practice of abortion. I'm telling you, they're frightened of this sister and what she represents. They don't fear Sexy Red or Beyonce. This is the sister that they fear. Young, pretty, articulate, intelligent, and telling them right to their face exactly how it is. Words can't really describe the level of joy, the level of love, the level of respect that I have for this sister when I heard her say these words on national television, who despite all the filth, all the destruction, all the degeneracy that they push, all the bumbleclot booty twerking and nonsense, all the methed out male monsters, tethers and dusty dudes, all of the boule and their sellout adjacent groups, she stood on business and defied this demonic practice. I had the unique privilege of watching this live, and when I was making this video I immediately thought of her. So I made it my duty to comb through hours and hours worth of footage in order to make sure I included her. Call her a pick-me, call her whatever you'd like. There's one thing I know for sure, the Most High God is taking care of this sister, much like he did Shiphrah and Puah. So that was the last clip for this video. I want us to protect the most vulnerable of our nation, our babies. There's no way someone can be considered quote-unquote pro-black or pro-FBA and be promoting abortions. So brothers, let's stand with our sisters. Sisters, stand with us against these demonic forces. And with that being said, be one and be blessed, family. Peace.